Welcome back to Moralis, everyone, and this series of where we're going to build an NFT game. My name is Philip, and in this video we're going to continue where we left off and build on the front end of our NFT game. Let me show you where we left off. So this is our DAMP as of now. We just have this image which represents our NFT, and here are the properties of the NFT. Currently, when we refresh this page, it just fetches the data from the Ethereum smart contract about the properties of the NFT. And what we want to do first of all is to add a button here to feed this NFT, because if the time to starvation here runs out, then this NFT will die and we will not be able to transfer it anymore, so it will be worthless. And as we can see also, that this NFT has already expired, because when I'm recording this, it's March 29th, so this has already expired, but it's still here and it's available, you know, in the well, I can't see on the website anything that would tell me and indicate that this is actually a dead NFT, according to our standard, of course. So we would need to detect that and then also add a button to actually feed it. Let's start with the time thing, so we actually see when this is dead, and then we'll implement the feed button. One thing that we can do before that, however, is to go into our token contract, because some of you guys in the previous, or in the first video I think, I mentioned that there is an error in the smart contract here where in the feed function we used next ID, where we should of course use the token ID from here. Same thing goes here in before token transfer. We just copy paste this, so that's why we had the mistake there as well. So it should be token ID and not next ID. Next ID is of course only for the min function, where we want the ID that is next in line to be created. So we go 0, 1, 2, 3, etc, etc. But with that out of the way, we can go back to our well, let's go to our main.js file, because what we want to do is we want to edit here in render pet. And actually, let me make this bigger so you guys can see. In render pet, we want to make sure that if the death time is already expired, we want to display something like, you know, our pet is dead. So if, well, first of all, we need to get what the time is now. So let now be equal to new date. So that will give us the current time. And then if, let's see here, if now is bigger than death time, meaning, you know, now the current time has passed the death time, that would mean that the pet is dead. So then we'll simply set this string, which is death time, we'll just set that to dead. Or we could, you know, we could make this HTML, so we could make it in bold even. And then we'll render that here. Okay? So if you do that, and we go back here, now we'll say dead, because the time has expired. And you could do that in other ways, you know, display it in a nicer way, but for now we're gonna leave it like that. And now we also need the feed button so that we can, you know, stop this from happening. So we're going to add, let's see, did we add a button or not? No, we did not. So down here we're going to add a button. And we'll add some bootstrap classes to it, so we'll call it btn primary. And we'll make this a block button so that it spans the entire width here, so we'll call it btn block. And then we'll just say feed. Maybe we should add an ID too in order to make it easier to handle clicks and so on. So we'll call this the feed button. And with that done, we can see it in action here. That's what it looks like. It looks pretty good. So when we click that, we want to execute the feed function in the smart contract. And so we need to set up a click handler in our main.js. We're going to do that with jQuery. We call this feed button dot click. And when that happens, let's see here, what do we want to do? We want to run a function that is called feed, but we need to some way get the ID of the clicked element, because in the future we will render multiple of these NFTs on the page. We need to know which one we want to feed. So I'm thinking that we should have a function like this. So we'll have an anonymous function here, and then in here we'll call feed with the pet ID. So I'll have to find the pet ID in some way of the clicked NFT. And I'm thinking that when we render it, so here we render it, and here we have the ID and the data and so on. here we can actually set, so we'll set on the pet button, or on the feed button, we'll set an attribute we'll call data pet ID, and we'll set that to the ID that we got from the smart contract. So then when we run this click handler, we can fetch the pet ID. So let pet ID be equal to the feed button and then the attribute data pet ID. And then we use that here to feed, and now we just need the feed function. Function feed. And this will also need to be async because we're going to call the smart contract. We'll input pet ID. And we're going to need the ABI, which is going to call the smart contract. And we're also going to need the contract instance, well, which we can copy from up here. We need the same thing here. And then we'll call contract.methods.feed. I think that's what we call it. Pet ID, which is the argument we need, and then .send, because this is a non-view function, so it actually modifies the state. And we're going to send it from Ethereum.selected address. And that's the entire call. Now all we need to do is to wait for the response. So on receipt, meaning the transaction is processed, we'll let's see here. We'll run a function here. We can console log that we're done. But what I'm also thinking that we should do is after we feed it, we should probably refresh the data here, because the time to starvation will change when we feed it. So if we want to see that live, once the transaction has been confirmed, then we want to re-render the pet. So we'll render this pet again. Or rather, we will call render game, because then we'll re-render everything. We'll get it from the smart contract again, so we'll do that. Render game, we'll run that again. So if we want to try this out, we actually need to redeploy the contract because, well, it's dead, so I can't really feed it. Well, we could try that, because if I try to feed it now, the contract should throw an error, right? Exception thrown in the contract code, and even though I can click confirm here, the transaction is going to fail, as we can see in the console. And MetaMask already warns us about that in the prompt here, so there's really no need to send it. But we want to try this out with an NFT that is not dead, so let's redeploy this contract and get a fresh NFT. So I'll run truffle console, and then we'll run migrate -- reset to just redeploy everything. All right, so now it's deployed once again, and we should have a fresh NFT. Let's open this up again and refresh this page. Yeah, we need to, of course, copy in the new address, contract address, get that into our main.js file at the top here. There we go, and now it already refreshed here. Now we can see time to starvation is tomorrow, and when I'm currently recording this, at 7:23. So if I feed now, this time should change slightly. It should push it ahead with the current time plus the amount of seconds that is here. So let's go ahead and do that. Confirm. Now it's 19:25. So it just bumps it up to match the current time right now plus this endurance. So that works as intended, and we already tried it where the time had expired, so we know that that works. So that's all good. Now we have that functionality. What I'm thinking now is that we should make this, number one, a lot prettier, this DApp, and number two, we should have support for multiple NFTs, right? So I should have a grid here of multiple NFTs, and we should be able to render them all if I own multiple ones. And then we should also be able to mint new NFTs, especially if we're the owner. So we have a lot to do, but I thought I'll cut this video here, make it short and sweet, and then I'll continue in the next video with making this layout look a bit better. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, check it out or leave a comment below. And then also don't forget to check out Moralis.io, join our amazing community of Solidity developers, and you can also try out Moralis, of course, which we use for the user authentication. You don't see it a lot because we only need to do it once in a while when our cookie expires. But when we do user authentication, we do it through MetaMask, and that's where Moralis comes in. So make sure to check that out, Moralis.io, and check out all the links in the description. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.